I remember watching live when you broke Tim Sylvia's arm. I want to ask you about that. When you slapped on that arm bar, were you like, I'm going to break his arm?
No, actually, I was holding on because I locked up the arm bar and he actually slipped his elbow out. But I wanted to transition to a triangle, which was to get to my head to the other side. So when he went to lift me up, I just bridged to make myself very heavy as a kind of a lever.
Yeah.
I always tell people it's like if you lift up a stick from the end and it's long, it's going to be heavy.
Yeah.
If the stick were to, you put the center of gravity of the stick underneath the weight of the stick, well, now you can lift it up with a little bit more ease. Like holding a baseball bat, holding it up vertically, now it's about balance. But if the bat were to swing out, well, now the bat's going to have some weight to it because of the leverage. So when someone goes to pick you up, you want to be as long as possible to make it to where now it's difficult for them to slam you. So that's all I was doing, was just kind of leveraging my body out so that way he would have to fall back down. And when he fell down, that forward pressure would basically throw him into a triangle. So it's a move I had done in practice many a time, especially in jiu-jitsu. So as I'm doing that, all of a sudden, his arm just gives loose. Yeah. I just feel pop, 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 and it opens. So I'm like, oh, I don't know what I have, but I have something, and it's being destroyed, so let me keep driving my hips forward. So I just kept driving forward until Herb Dean came in and told me to stop the fight. So when I rolled off, I was like, oh, the fight's over with. And then his mannerism afterwards kind of threw me because, my coach and I were looking at him like, he goes, did you break his arm? I'm like, maybe his elbow just dislocated. I'm like, dude, something popped. Something opened up. So like, oh, we're going to restart the fight. I'm like, cool, just start me back in the arm bar.
Yeah, he wanted to keep fighting.
Yeah, but the way I looked at it, I was like, hey, I had your arm. Give me back your arm, and we could get starting. So that was kind of the disagreement we had. I was like, well, put me back in the same position. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you give me your arm, and we can start all over. Yeah. So then they're like, well, we'd have to start you neutral. And so then my coach is freaking out, but I'm like, you even see me kind of like, hey, man, we'll do it again. We'll do it now. All right. So I started wrapping my glove up, like, all right, start the fight again. Because in my mind, I was just going to throw a head kick right at his arm. Because, when he goes to block it, I'm like, we'll find out real quick if it's broken. Which thankfully, Herb, the doctor came in, I think it was Goodman, stopped the fight. Because could you imagine, I'd have thrown a full blast kick at his arm and it wasn't attached, it might have been bad for our sport.
What about the other broken arm, Nogueira?
Yeah, that one I felt bad about, and I knew that was going to happen just because, an American versus a Brazilian jiu-jitsu is, even though it was a Japanese art, was really modified to its current state in Brazil, And when I had him in the Kimura, I remember once I had it slipped to a certain angle, I'm like, okay, it's done. I have you. You could see me in the fight starting to look for Herb because I knew he's not going to tap. So as soon as the referee jumps in, I can let go of pressure. Because I'm still a fan of Nogueira's, and I'm not a guy who's I've never tried to maim somebody in our sport. If you get hurt by me, that's because you don't protect yourself and the referee didn't get in there. I'm not trying to get in extra. I've never been that guy that, if the referee grabs me, I keep twisting. I think that's wrong. I think that, look, we're both martial artists, and I always tell this to people. When people sit there and go, how much do you hate the other guy? There's guys I've liked less than others. But for the most part, if all of a sudden in the middle of my fight, let's say the power goes out and they say, I'm sorry, Dana comes out, hey, look, fight's postponed, we'll come back in the next week, everybody go next door to the bar, drinks are on us. And I'm sitting at the bar having a beer. Who do you think I have most in common with? Who do you think would probably be the guy that I'd be sharing a beer with? The guy in the front row who's screaming obscenities and has no clue, stand him up. What the hell's going on in a fight? Who hasn't been in a fight since he got beat up in 5th grade? Probably not. You know what I mean? Like, I'm probably going to be hanging out with the guy I was fighting. He knows what it's like to train. He's into the same interests that I have. He has injuries and pain and same fears and same angst and same goals. That's a dude I'm going to share a beer with. Yeah. So as far as wanting to shred his arm, I didn't want to. I was hoping it just dislocated at the elbow when it did finally pop. And then you even see later when I stood up and I was doing the interview, like I'm kind of looking over at him, and the fact that they're bracing his arm, I was like, well, shit, it's just a dislocated elbow. Like, what's going on? Maybe dislocate the shoulder. And then I never in my wildest dreams imagined the Kimura, the hammerlock, could have destroyed his humerus that way. Spiral fractured, they had to put it back together with, a halo.
You're a strong man with great technique. Of course it can happen.
Well, I just thought that the weak link would have been the shoulder. I figured I would have tore his shoulder, tore a rotator cuff, which is a horrible injury. I don't want that on anybody, but I thought that the soft tissue would have went first. But I guess at the angle that I had it broke at the humerus.